Good morning, and thank you for being with us this morning. We are very happy to do, once again, Breakfast with a Champion. It's a concept we came up with a few years ago, and we're kind of making history here this morning in the Met section because we've never had a fully exempt Champions Tour player with us, though we've had a medalist in the qualifier, and we've had a Champions Tour player in the past, being Rob, who had finished in the, I think it was 44th last year. And as we all know and have been watching all this past season, Rob is fully exempt going into the Champions Tour in 2024. So we're all excited about that. And we're excited that Carl put together a really nice program this morning, and want to thank him for all his efforts and assisting us. I'm in New York City, working out of a room where I teach. And fortunately for Carl and Rob, they are at the Yacht and Country Club in Stuart, Florida, where our friend Mark Brown is the director of instruction. I had the opportunity to visit with Mark and Billy Van Orman this past weekend down there, so I know they've got great weather. That's a great facility. And so at this point, we're going to turn it over to Carl and Rob to kind of take you through the journey of not only their friendship and their relationship as instructor and player, but what they've gone through for the past couple of decades, which has got us to this point. So at this point, I'd like to welcome in Carl and Rob.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Hey, good morning. Thank you, John. Thank you, Caitlin, for putting this together. And welcome everybody to sunny Florida. Here we go.
Yeah. We've been talking about this for a while, Carl and I, ever since we started on this journey, sort of on the Champions Tour. We've been talking about doing things together.
Yeah.
And what a better way than do another educational.
Yeah, a little forum, try to help some folks out there. And obviously, Rob has achieved the dream that many, if not all of us, would love to do. And hopefully we can today give you some things for those of you that are just getting into your 40s to set the goal as Rob did to get to the Champions Tour. We thought it'd be a good idea, maybe just even start with some background, how we got started on this. We had a little video, but we've got some technical difficulties. Maybe at some point we can get that out there. But, Rob and I met back in, what was it, 2000, really? Yeah, 2099 when we opened Glen Arbor. And, obviously that was an incredible time, opening a brand new golf course back then. Rob was at Shinnecock working. Fortunately for us and for me, he came over to Glen Arbor to start a new life and a new chapter in his career. And I'd say the best thing about that time was we only had about 6-8 members, maybe 25 for the first year, 50 the next. And we had a lot of time to play golf on a brand new golf course. And I think, I remember fondly all the evenings that we would go out and play and work on our games. And of course, back then you were working on winning that PGA events. That was your focus.
Well, obviously it's starting to, run the club to build this cool club from the ground up. But, so I was kind of double dipping all the time, right?
Yeah.
Doing the PGA stuff, and then I always had this desire in my belly to play at the highest level full time. And Carl always knew that. I let a few people in that kind of knew me. I would tell them what I wanted to do. And a lot of people thought I was crazy because you're a full time, golf instructor or head golf pro or director of golf, and how do you play the tour full time? When you do that, and that's kind of where the journey started to go to my end result here on the Champions Tour. And then what we're going to talk about is all the stuff that we did in between 2000 and basically 2023 to get here. And then most importantly, what I've learned in the past 2 years out there playing full time versus being a director of golf for the past 18 years of my career. So we got a lot to talk about. We're gonna keep you guys entertained. We're gonna talk golf stuff. We're going to talk about business stuff. Shoot out some questions. Hopefully, we make this interactive as well.
No question. We want to make this interactive. I know there's a chat board where you can ask questions, and Caitlin and John can fire the questions to us. But maybe, Rob, you could start back. Obviously, I forgot what your first win was. I remember I caddied for you for the Buick Classic qualifier you got through, but there were some signs that you started to play well in the Met section and win some things in the early 2000s. What can you tell us about that part of your life and career?
Yeah, it's funny because I came from in the mid '90s. I played a little bit full time on the Global Bear Tour for about 2 or 3 years. So I was coming off of playing full time sort of thing. When you're in your 20s, you think you know what you're doing, but you really don't. But actually had some success out there. I won out the Global Bear Tour a few times, and then just needed something to fall back on. I didn't have a college degree. I went to college. I never finished college, so I figured what a better way to get an education than to learn how to build a private golf club from the ground up. So that's kind of what took me into that direction. But as I was doing all of that, I started to, always kept my game sharp. And how do you do that when you're a club pro? That's what everybody wants to know. I always had time during the day, whether morning, afternoon, middle of the day, end of the day, to work on my game. And I always had a game plan of what I wanted to work on. And I did it every day. And it was always this driving desire underneath to win the National Club Pro, get 6 PGA Tour exemptions and a major. And then I figured I'd get my tour card that way.
Yeah.
A couple other guys in the section did it. Dobbs won it twice. A lot of guys won that Club Pro in the section. And it's hard once you make that jump. And you talk to the guys who've done that, from winning the Club Pro to being an exempt member on the PGA Tour. You get 7 events to try to make a bunch of money to become a tour member. It's a lot of pressure, and that's the difference between a Club Pro and a touring pro. So what I've learned in the last 2 years is coming from the Club Pro, transitioning into that touring pro is what we're going to dive into today. So.
Yeah, and I remember back in those days, certainly we had a lot of fun events in the Met PGA, but leading into some things like the Club Pro. I mean, one of the things that Rob's always done that I think a lot of us admire is you dream big, right? A lot of people, they win some events, but they're not thinking, hey, I could win on tour, right? And then truly believing it. But I think we saw, Westchester PGA maybe one thing, small events, but when it came to the Club Pro, for the US Open qualifier, you were spending, what'd you do the week and 2 before? Because I know it was a little different than your average head pro championship, let's say.
That's exactly right. So when, it was all about kind of getting ready for that National Club Pro. That was like our major, or my major at least. Yeah. So during the big events, or the bigger events that we played, the Met Opens, the National Club Pro, I'd probably take like that week prior, and I'd slash my book for teaching. I'd throw a little bit more time sort of into myself. But then the lessons that I put in there were lessons that I wanted to go play golf with. So I turned them into playing lessons. And they loved this because they knew I was prepping for an event, yet they were playing 18 holes with me and I was helping with the golf game. So, I kind of tied my game around how I could improve around doing my job, which made it a win-win on both sides, right?
Right. So you don't do the 8, 9 a.m. lesson. You practice in the morning. You teach a little in the midday, but those are playing lessons. So you get some swings in, and then you cross off the book at 4 o'clock, so you can play till dark and practice.
Exactly.
So there's a way to do it, and really to be good at both. And I think that's a lot of what everybody that's watching as a PGA golf professional needs to know. We have a bundle of tasks that we have to do every day as golf professionals, but you cannot let your game suffer because of all the other tasks. And how you did it was just to schedule your time and make sure you put a priority on yourself and your game.
There's always a time where I had 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And instead of, getting caught up in some sort of situation, which I could have, because as golf pros, you can walk in from one situation to another. I kind of just put my head down. I go down to the putting green or whatever. And when I was practicing, the culture at the club was kind of cool. They knew that when I was practicing, I was actually taking 10 or 15 minutes, and they would kind of leave me alone, my members. It was a nice sort of thing. Of course, when you develop a club, you get that sort of
train your members,
right,
as well
as the team. So it made it a little bit easier. But again, that, showing the other PGA pros that are in here, if you kind of set those standards where you're at, you can do that at clubs too.
And I remember, Darrell Kessler mentioned many times that when he played well, his best years, every 10, 15 minutes he had, he went to the putting green. He didn't even hit balls. Now, there was a time in your career where you called your golf swing shut, steep, and across the line.
Cups, shut, cup, steep, and across the line.
Shut, cup, and steep, and across the line, right? And so you spent a lot of time working and improving on your golf swing, getting it really tight to where, and we'll talk through kind of the transition there. But talk maybe a little bit about now, where you are now, that maybe it's a little bit more about your game.
Wow, yeah. So I mean, going from what I used to do and how I used to maintain my game every day in our bays, we have a bay like this at Glen Harbor as well. I would always get in there, I'd get my setup, make sure my setup was the same, which is always good to do. Make sure your setup is neutral, make sure you're swinging, on plane and everything's square, blah, blah, and the ball's flying pretty straight. When you don't have access to all this stuff when you're on the roads, and it becomes a lot less about that. It becomes a lot more, just about sort of getting your feel and how you're controlling the golf ball. I was a huge, as you guys knew, you know, when I started winning the section, I was a big drawer on the golf ball. I drew golf ball. I mean, if you wanted to hit it left to right, I don't think I could hit it left to right for a while. And as I got out there, you know, I learned in the last 2 years now to work the ball both ways, which it was a Cliff's Notes versions. I had to go really fast and do it, and I had to do it while I was competing under pressure against Bernard Lang and everybody else. I really haven't played great yet, to be honest with you.
No question.
I'm working on some things, and it's getting more and more comfortable. And once this comfort level gets even better, then I'm going to start to. It'll be a lot freer. But you know, I've played the last 2 years working the ball in both directions. And then, how important is the short game? That's 98% of my practice.
Yeah.
Is short game, chipping, pitching, and putting.
And a lot of what we'll cover today. I think that a couple things. One, hopefully everybody picked up on the fundamentals. I know Rob brushed through it pretty quickly, but to get to where he is and to achieve anything, you have to master the fundamentals, right? You have to be really good. Rob's super focused on standing in front of a mirror at night and just checking ball position and then checking posture and alignment. I mean, he's really good, dedicated at making sure the simple things, the fundamentals, are really good. And then just kind of feeding off what you said about cutting it. I can remember, you know, I think it was the second round of the Club Pro down at Port St. Lucie. I was exhausted. You were beating balls. I sat down behind you. You said, "Look, man, I'm going to win if I just don't miss it left." And we started talking about hitting a cut. And I've been cutting the ball my entire life. So for me, I pretty much have a good feel for that motion. And one of the things that struck me is how far left you had to aim to really truly trust at first how to cut the ball.
I felt so uncomfortable. But
As a drawer.
as a drawer, and the guy who always closed the face and always slimmed it. To feel that, it was just different. So learning how to play with all that stuff as we're out there is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And then short game is, you know, becoming so much more important because you know, I'm gonna miss more greens here and there while I'm going through this transition, and it's fine as long as I'm short game to get up and down.
We definitely talked about the strategy out there. It's got to make more birdies than bogeys.
Yeah.
Rob will talk to it. You know, you can shoot under par each round. You're going to do just fine. And you know, one of the things I've seen from being out there is the guys are just really good at getting up and down. If they miss the fairway, they hit it short of the green. They chip it up. They make a putt and keep moving.
And every shot is as important as every other shot.
Yeah.
So
Right.
all the focus that you're putting in that first tee ball, and then all the focus you're putting into that next shot to get to the green. And then if you miss the green, all the focus that you're putting into that shot, because you know, my season, it's kind of funny. I finished 36th on the number this year, and my season came down to the last putt on the last hole of the second playoff to see if I was going to go into the final playoff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how crazy it is for one shot. I mean, if I had one shot back from any of the shots that I took in all of the tournament, I wouldn't have been in that position.
But it's pretty awesome that you made that putt. Maybe you can talk a little bit about, because that was an awesome moment. Again, we have a video that putt was in, and I'm sure it's all over the internet so you can find it. But a couple things happened there. One, you can talk a little bit about Kenny Duke giving you some nice positive words prior to, and then you got to be pumped that you made the putt, because now, I mean, had you made it without making that putt, I don't know if it'd be as important as I made an 8-footer on the last hole for my card. So when you have an 8-footer for a win, you've already done it.
I've replayed that video probably 100,000 times to just burn it in my brain, because it's so important to be positive about everything out there and get to such a great routine. So, you know, when you're out there every week, you're getting to a great routine, following the routine, and you're practicing, playing, preparing yourself for the weekend. So you have enough energy on Sunday. So when you're in the last 9 holes, and the contention you have.
And you got to put that putt back, because you certainly can't be thinking about it all the time. But if you get to 17 or 18 and you have a putt that you got to make, it's nice to be able to pull that out of your mind, that chamber, and be like, been here, done it, I'm going to do it again. 100% positiveness. Tell us about Kenny Duke standing on that last green. That was a fun story.
Yeah, so on the last green, we were, it's funny, I had 3 holes left, and I turned to my caddy, Mark, and I said, Mark, what do we have to do? I wanted to know. And he said, you just can't make double come in. So it was a par 5 coming up. I made par. It was under 500 yard par 5. I made par, which was a bummer. I got up and down on 17 from a terrible 8-iron into green from a place I shouldn't have up and down. on 17. Then I hit a drive on 18, a little bit to the right.
Yeah.
So I was leaking oil
Which is
coming
better
down,
than left.
which is better than left was water. So
Yeah.
I get down, I'm looking at my shot, and I have a shot. I got like 170 yards, and there's trees in front of me, and I've got water to the left, and the wind's kind of blowing a little bit downwind, left to right. I'm like, cut this thing off the green. So I turned to Mark. I'm like, Mark, give me the 8-iron. He's like, he said a few expletives, which I won't say. He said, if you take that effing club and try to hit that effing shot, he goes, you're not going to do it because I'm going to break it. Yeah. He goes, you're taking your wedge and you're going to put you out. You're going to have an 80-yard shot. Worst you're going to make is 4. Worst you're going to make is 5. We go and we're good. He goes, you hit it in the water. It's a whole other story. He goes, please don't hit that shot. And I said, okay. I agree with him. I sat, looked at it, and it's a good thing because my pitch out shot didn't go 80 yards. I was trying to hit 80 yards, and it went 40 because of the lie.
Yeah.
The lie was so kind of nasty. So I had 135 to the front, downwind. I had 160 to the hole, and I was thinking just a solid 50 degrees to jump out of the rough, get on the front edge, and kick back there. And I hit it perfect, and the ball didn't jump, and it just kind of dove into the front bunker, and it just kind of buried it a little bit.
Now you like 3 buried in a bunker.
I like 4.
Oh yeah.
No,
No, 3.
3.
Yeah.
No, 4. I like 4. Yes, I'm hitting my.
You're hitting it 4.
I'm hitting my 4. Thank
You
you.
made 5.
This is how important each shot is, right? So I get to the bunker shot, and my caddy says to me, he goes, Poppy, you hit more shots out of the bunker than anybody this year. My bunker game was almost last on tour when I got out there, and I did. I worked on my bunker game, and that's one of the things that I need to focus on. Hit a ton of bunker shots. He said, "You're 5 for 5 this week." He goes, "Do your thing." And I got up there, and I just saw the ball going where I wanted to see it land. I breathed. I just told myself, pressure's a privilege. This is what you practice and play for. Enjoy the moment. And I got up there and hit one of the best bunker shots I ever had to about 7 feet. Past the hole. Kenny Duke had probably a 20-footer coming the other way for birdie. He makes his. And I saw the perfect line that his ball went in. Greens are brand new. I was hoping that the greens would actually hold the same line because they were so new that they were doing different things. It was about a ball or a cup out on the left-hand side. It was a 7-footer. And again, just told myself, you've been here so many times. It's a privilege to be here. Just make the best stroke you can. And I hit a solid cup out on the left and the right center. And boy, even to this point, it makes my hair stand up because of all the work that you do to get to those points and know that you can succeed, which 36th on the Jones Run.
Yeah, pretty awesome. And Kenny Duke said to you, give you comments?
Kenny, we were on the last hole, and I was getting sort of nervous, and I said to him, I said, "Who's up on the tee?" He's like, "You got to relax." And I'm like, "Well, I thought I was going to relax, but I guess I wasn't." So we're walking down the fairway. He's like, "Brits," he goes, "You know what?" He goes, "Out of all the people that should have made that putt, he goes, you deserve it because it's really cool to have you here."
Yeah.
He was pulling for me.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. As we might talk about, or you might know from many of the players out there, you've made a lot of friends out there. You got a lot of fans. The guys respect that you're out there, and they want you out there because you're having fun. You're having a lot of fun, maybe more so than a lot of people out there. How much do you think the fun and your positive attitude is helping you through this?
I think the fun, I'm definitely having fun. I think it's the most stressful job I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, I've definitely felt more stress. I've had to relieve more stress towards the end of the season than I ever felt. Any meeting, any interview, anything I've ever done. But definitely having more fun doing it.
Pressure is a privilege.
Pressure is definitely a privilege, and you can get lost in this sometimes.
Yeah.
You got to kind of remind yourself, even though you know it's for your living, you got to remind yourself that this is fun, and you get to do what you wanted to do forever.
Yeah.
So don't ever second guess it or slap it.
Or you can get down for 5 seconds, but after that, you got to drop it.
I was down for a good portion of the season for about 5 weeks. So
Yeah. No, we talked about that, and maybe you can talk a little bit about, you obviously you mentioned visualization before.
Yes.
And how key that is. I think we all know that, if an idea is the seed and visualization is the fertilizer, right? You spend a lot of time talking about remembering the shots you hit and putting them in your mind. But also, going into this year, we've talked a lot about how it's not the year to think about golf swing. Your golf swing's in a good place. You've trained, your body's in a good place. You've trained the movement through functional training. And how you're going to go out there this year and not really think as much. Not spend a little bit more time visualizing the shot and playing the feel rather than swing thoughts. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's where the big transition actually happened, basically last year, because I was always working on my swing and swing and swing. I went to a dinner with Jerry Kelly and Scott Kieran and their wives and Stephen Ames and became friendly with them. And as we were drinking some red wine, they said to me, "Brett, they said, you're such a great golf swing." They said, "You got to stop thinking about it." And I didn't bring it up to them, but they just said to me, "I started thinking about it." So that was the beginning of last year, and I stopped thinking about it and I started working the ball more. And that really helped because, you shouldn't be thinking internally out there. And you guys can see when you start thinking internally, because when you play full time, if a person takes a little bit longer, or then sure, you can see them getting out of the routine, you can tell there's something wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But when they're in the routine, no matter how good or bad they're playing, you're always in the routine.
Yeah.
Right? The routine might be a little faster or a little slower, but the routine is still the same. Yeah. Minus the 2 seconds, right? Which is why you get in or out of it. So, for me, it was just really important to just get away from thinking about how things worked and knowing that I could just do it and I had to just control the flight more. So I got out of my brain, I got out of the visual part of it, and I got more into what does this feel like. And since I have so much more time to practice, I was able to hit thousands of balls feeling shots and feeling these short-term shots, which to me, I've always relied on watching it more than feeling it. Yeah. I don't know if people can relate to that or not, but I'm sure other people, they get into watching it, whereas you fool the camera. Whereas when you start feeling it, then it starts to make more sense.
No question, but I think coming down the stretch of any tournament, there's no thoughts about your technique. It's all about just get the ball to my target, however I need to. And I think we all know as teachers and certainly players, you hit a million balls on a flat lie. But when you get out there and you're on the 17th hole of the tournament, you got a little hanging line or the one at the rough, how often are you really practicing that shot? And so that's where the athlete comes out. That's where a person just feels it in their hands and figures out how to get the ball to the green or on the green or close to the hole without really technique.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the part that I knew I needed to change from year 1 to year 2.
Correct.
I felt what I needed to improve. Internally, I knew what I needed to improve. And then the stats actually just backed up what I felt I needed to improve. And what I felt was exactly what needed to improve. There were times where I was nervous over certain short game shots, in year 1.
Yep.
Whereas year 2 got a little bit better. And I know year 3, from what I've been doing, it's going to get even better. So you've got to just kind of work through, understand where you're feeling, understand why you're feeling that way, and then work through it. Because if you're feeling, and I'll say it, I was even feeling I couldn't understand the bottom of my shots and pitching. I was having some problems pitching. So imagine you have to get up and down to win or get up and down to do something, and you're not hitting those shots as solid as you can. Your feel's going to be off, and then when the feel's off, and you don't hit it solid, you're not going to have close pucks. You're not controlling the ball. So
gets into your confidence,
and then it gets into your confidence, and then you might do something like peak or accelerate too much or whatever it is. But then you got to make sure.
And I think it's important for everybody to understand. Those that travel certainly do. You go through the Met section, and by and large, all our grasses are the same. All the lies are generally speaking the same. I was fortunate to go out and travel with Rob. You get to Texas, and you're 4 feet, 6 feet off the front of the green, and you can stub that shot because it's grainy coming against you, and it's wet. And so I think when he says he kind of lost the feel for pitching, it's amazing how confidence is fragile. And you go to an event, you hit a couple of missed pitches, and you have to be super strong, which it will be this year, to just let it go, because the reality is sometimes it's not you. The technique you had doesn't work in Texas, where it might work in Tucson.
Hey, when I'm playing with Jose Mario Lozano and I watch him chunk 2 shots in a row off a 30-yard or 20-yard pitch shot, it's difficult because that guy never touches shot.
Correct.
Yeah, it's just, and again, these are the things that you have to watch, internalize, and say, okay, well, wow, if Jose Mario Lozano never chunks a wedge, he's chunking it, maybe I better figure out another way to get the ball on the green.
And I was surprised at how many players that I watched in the history of golf, chipping shots in, amazing short games, used a hybrid or putting from off the green. Amazing players through all the years, just standing there with a hybrid on what looked like an easy pitch shot, but it truly, obviously, it wasn't. Like you said, for Jose to chunk one.
Two.
Right, so have you
Yeah.
practiced a little, I saw you practice, we did that last week when I was there, the hybrid and some of those others.
Yeah.
Certainly a good shot to have in the repertoire.
That's all we did.
And that's something Rob and I talked about, the ability to add new shots to your game, right? I think that's one of my personal opinion, that's one of the ways that Rob's gonna be more successful this year and keep getting better and get to a win. It's just adding weapons, right? I always think back to pitcher Mike Scott. Mike Scott was a pitcher for the Mets in 1986, totally a mediocre pitch. He went to Houston, a guy named Roger Craig taught him a split finger fastball, and he throws a no-hitter and he becomes a legend from one pitch. He learned one pitch, right? And so that's at the major league level, right? So we've talked a little bit about using TrackMan and maybe creating a little bit more spin on the shots. I think, one of the things we talked about was you had a lot of high pitch shots. That was how you stopped it. But, one of the things you see out there, and you're seeing a lot more of it today, is guys that, really get that attack angle down, cut it, cross it. When you draw it, you can't do it, right? But cut it, cross it, they're really getting that high 7, 8, 9,000 spin. How much that can help?
So those are all the things that, when you added, fighting the ball left to right, now those shots are on the green, I can feel, which is something that, when you draw the ball and you try to do something like that on the greens, it doesn't quite match with what you're normally doing. So now that I'm able to keep the face open and feel the club won't come from more from the outside, those shots are accessible, which is why the short game got better than it did from last year.
And that Bermuda rough that you get around the country, being shallow coming through that rough is never really as good, especially with a sandy base. You almost want to hit a lot of those like bunker shots.
Yeah, you're getting where you're not really hitting the ball.
Yeah, where you're not touching the golf ball. Well, maybe you want to show a little bit about how you've gone from a drawer to a player that can hit it both ways. And is there a percentage? Do you try to hit more?
For me, Carl just kind of opened up the other side of the play face. I was a one-dimensional player, which was a draw player, and I hooked it. So getting the ball left to right was really hard for me. Keeping the face open was hard for me. So now that I understand how to keep the face open, I understand the feel of what I'm trying to do with trying to play the ball now. So now I just have to put more time into, where I'm aimed, and then, hitting shots accordingly. Now, while I say that, I don't just hit golf balls anymore. Every shot that I hit will be for a major or for some sort of big tournament, because, even when I'm trying to make a motor skill pattern change, you can tell whether you're doing it right or wrong by the ball frame. And then what you want to do is rehearsals become a lot more important than the actual trying to do with the golf ball. So over time, and what we do, what I do when I'm practicing is I make sure that I rehearse a lot what I'm trying to feel first, and then I go in and I hit a shot, make sure it's doing what I'm doing, and then I'll give myself a pat on the back, and then I'll put myself into a situation. So then I know I'm in that situation. I already know.
That's a good way to build confidence for sure. And the second thing is by rehearsing, let's say it's a cut, right? And as a good player, you're doing this anyway because you've got side hill lies and stuff. You got to get a feel for each shot, each line, whatever you're hitting. So, but we've talked about by doing those rehearsals, you now don't have to think of the ball. You literally just did it 2 or 3 times. So I saw you kind of making that cut feel motion where your hands are kind of going left and the handle's moving over to the left pocket.
Your face is staying low, your body's rotating. The more that you rotate the body, and the less that you want to think about technically, the more you rotate the body, and the less you swing your arms, the more you're going to keep that face open. Right? So the face is going to stay open, the less the face is going to have to play. And I know going into the pressure out there, I definitely want to feel less play. I played a lot of years with a lot of play in my face because I had to look it from the inside.
Well, the body was slowing down, hands were speeding up, slowing down and flipping it, which you can do well when your timing's perfect.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The difference between being, a club pro at high level versus when you do it every day is you could do that. Say play and stay open, and you sling it for 3 days and you win. Then you're going to get done and you're going to go on to your regular life. You're going to teach lessons. You're going to do whatever you got to do. You're going to go to your meetings. You're going to take care of your assistants. You have whatever, right? You go to your life, and then another week and a half later, 2 weeks later, you might have another tournament. So then you get up there, it might be, I don't know, what might be the Met Open or something. So what you do, you sling it in the Met Open, you finish okay, but you're like, all right, it's all right. And then what do you have? Another week or 2 off. Whereas what I did is I went out on the tour, and I slung it my first event in China, and then I slung it the next event, and then I slung it, and I started to sling it, and it started slinging to a lot of slings.
So
It starts getting more and more sling, and then you try to not sling it, and you try to hold the face off and then fight.
Yeah.
So, you know, your tendencies out there when you're playing every day are very different than when you're a club pro doing your job.
No, 100%. And I'm a big proponent of coaching, coaching the player, not the golf swing. And the reality is, if a player draws the ball, they must and have to be able to hit a cut. Because the second you can't cut the ball, you've overdone the ball. And so I think that's been a nice thing in your practice. Is practice whatever shots you have, but every once in a while, there's 9 ball flights. We all know this by Johnny Miller. And you pick 4 of them and said, okay, this is my predominant shot, and then I can always go the other way when needed. You can play at a really high level. Absolutely. Yeah. And then in practice, if that other opposite direction shot isn't really good, then it's time to get some work done.
Right, and most of the guys out there are actually working that way. That you see predominant players. I mean, Lee Jansen predominantly draws it. And you have certain guys that, like Kenny Perry, draws it all the time. He has a very hard time actually hitting the cut because he draws it so much. But then you have a guy like a David Frost who hits a draw, and then he can also get that little bleeder. Jerry Kelly plays both directions. Stephen Allen, both directions, fancies the cut. Ernie Els fancies the cut or can draw it, but they're real close to neutral.
Yeah.
When you see the guys who are a little far, like Will Brown likes to draw it. He's a little more in from the inside.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to watch all of these different guys, kind of manage the games around. You can see when Obi starts to draw it too much, what's he going to try to hit some cuts? So you're always working with that.
Who were some of the players that you may have learned some things from playing with them? And you mentioned some pretty legendary names right there. And, you have an opportunity to be out there a couple hours. And one of the great things about Rob that I know, I can tell you for those that haven't been out there, he'll walk up to anybody on the range. I watched him. Darren Clark set up 2 stakes and a rope in front of him, and he was 30 yards away. And I was like, I wonder what Darren's doing. And you walked right over him and said, Darren, what are you doing there?
Yeah, they gave me a 15-minute assertion of how he's trying to cover the ball, keep it low, get it
underneath the rope. It was a visual for him.
Visual for him. Just kind of feel his hips don't rotate very well, but his upper body rotates very well. As you can see when he finishes, his upper body's rotated more than his hips. So he tries to keep the ball. And there's for example, guys won majors. He's out of sequence, but he's still a great player. He hits it well, he drives it, he's a good putter, and he does it mostly with his upper body.
Yeah, so maybe we could go into talking about cover the ball. Something that has been something you've been trying to focus on a little bit better. Obviously not being behind it underneath the clipping, but getting more on top of the ball and covering it. Yeah, from the short king all the way to the
different feel. And it starts for me. It just started from the setup. All the guys that I played with for years when I was out here, they knew that I was set up a lot of tilt behind it, and I like to sling it. But anytime you do something like that, you're gonna out and sling it. When it's tight, it's hard to sling. It started too far to the right, start hitting stuff. So over the 2 years, I didn't do this in a day. Over the 2 years, I just got my body leaning more left. I've got my shoulders a lot more open. I'm coming from a set position with my right hand every time, and then I can feel the club just working more, sort of more across. It also is like a few degrees out to in, which gives me a lot more control of hitting this nice little pitchy sort of shots that can start left and are going to go. So that's what I've been working on. Right now, I don't want to hit too many balls.
Yeah, unfortunately, Rob, as we would all do in preparation, he hit 1 million golf balls. And on top of it, he was working on his body, right? Who among us would, with this incredible opportunity, having 27 weeks guaranteed out there, you want to be in the best shape possible. Obviously, you're on the younger side of the champion tour, which is kind of cool to think.
Yep.
And so he's been working out a ton and trying to prep. But we've spoken recently about, focusing a little bit more on golf and taking the workouts down to where you don't hurt yourself, basically.
Yeah, I had a trainer all last year that traveled with me. And he was traveling with a few other guys. And I worked out every day. I did a lot of stuff with, I saw some of my posts, a lot of rotational stuff, a lot of stability stuff. We believe in stability, rotation, and flexibility. So we would train in those, and then we had power every once in a while we'd add in there. The power things are what I learned as a 50-year-old man. I still feel like I'm 30 or 25. I learned that, you can do it, but what's going to happen is you're going to hurt yourself. And I am in probably the best shape of my life, and I just know that we did some broad jumps mid-season, and I felt a little tweak sort of lower back. Nothing. I played the season. I felt fine. But as I practiced towards the off season, I wanted to work on some things and start grinding harder. The lower back just kind of locked up on me for the first time, which just moved to life down here. It gives you a little bit of a slap in the face. So as I talk to the doctors, my coaches, and everybody's on agreement that as a 50-year-old man, what the heck are you doing working out so hard? I got ripped by my doctor. He's telling me most guys retire when they're 40 to 45, and they do that for a reason, because your body starts to break down. This is the first sort of sign that I've gotten that I've got to just chill out with the workouts.
Which is hard because you feel about 30, so you think you can do these things. But as we talked about, just focus on golf and stay in shape, but stay in golf shape. So maybe you can give those that are watching, if you had 4 exercises that you were going to do, if you're going to throw away the explosive stuff, because you're already one of the longer players out there. Yeah. I don't think gaining length is going to make you play better.
No, and I wasn't trying to gain.
No, you weren't trying to gain length,
Definitely
but that's for sure what all that explosive stuff is going to do is give you speed. You've already got plenty of speed, so it's coming down to short game and scoring. So maybe there's 4 things you're going to do. I know you got bands you travel with, you got different workouts you do each and every day. It's really fun being on the road with Rob, sitting there with my iPad, having a cup of coffee while he's on the ground sweating, working out.
Yeah, I mean, I try to always stretch my hip flexors, my lower body, my glutes, my core, on the groundwork, anything that you're doing through here just to make it flexible, movable. That's what
Hips and core.
hips, core, glutes, full rolling, Theragun. I travel with mini Theragun, Hypervolt, all that stuff. Just pound all your legs and your butt. And then all the stuff that you do for the hips, you got to keep your hips mobile. So you want to work, opening your hips. You want to. Well, I mean, actually,
There are plenty. So you focus on hips, you focus on core, glutes.
hips, core, glutes, and then stability in
And
your shoulders. At the top, you always want to squeeze. You're using bands. You always want to make sure that your frame is nice and straight. You don't want to have any sort of slump posture. Because over time, those wear out your body. So bands are great. 5, 10, 15, 25 that I travel with.
You learned a lot about working out and how to maximize your performance through, what your body can do.
And I definitely do not hurt. I've got 3 weeks, and I'm
Gotta be careful.
Listen,
The pain is gone.
it's nowhere near.
All right, so I don't know, John, any questions in there? Anything you want us to go to? Let me just see if I.
I have some questions here.
I figured by now we might.
So Dan Desvanis, he's congratulating Rob on his great play, and he would like to know the types of mental training you do on a daily, weekly basis that prepares you for your best tournament golf.
That's great. I love that question. I find ways and places to do those mental visualizations in the weirdest places. I had an MRI the other day on my back, right? So what I do when I was in the MRI machine, which took about 25 minutes on my back, I placed myself, because you're in an uncomfortable machine, I placed myself, I had the earphones on, I closed my eyes, and what do? I envision myself hitting great shots and playing tournaments that I've been playing, from past experiences. So I'm visualizing myself winning in Newport. Now, I've never played Newport Beach, right? So I'm envisioning myself driving to Newport, driving away from Newport, with the U.S. Open trophy sitting next to me in the car. I like to do little things like that. I like to, when I'm playing in, so let's say the 20 minutes I was sitting there, I was envisioning my ride to Newport. I was envisioning winning the tournament. I didn't know what the golf course looked like, so I couldn't envision that. And I would envision myself winning the golf tournament, driving home the trophy. I'm getting ready for the Chubb event. So when I get on my Peloton, I'll just sit on the Peloton and I'll envision myself, hoisting the trophy at on the 18th green after I made a putt, and watching my kids, run up to me, and my wife, from the detail of her face, I know she looks like when she cries, she's coming up to me and giving me a big hug. Those are the things that I envision. I don't envision sort of the process sometimes, but I mostly try to envision the end result and things above and beyond the end result, because I think that when you go through the process that I'm going through, which is playing on tour, just like hitting golf balls, wins are just part of the process.
That's great.
Very good, Rob. And I know that you often use that because we've talked about it in the past with all of your success here in the Met section. One of the things that I'm wondering about as a follow-up to Dan's question was, when you're on course, what is your process? Let's say starting on the first tee with regard to the tee shot you're playing. Are you employing visualization on each and every shot as you play?
So yes, so that's a good question. So yes, so after my round, my caddy and I, after I finish a round or a practice round, we'll go out and we'll play the golf course on the range. So the first hole will be X, it's the driver, it's a 420-yard par 4 where I got to hit a little cut. So we'll pick out, a spot on the range, we'll pick out an area that I need to hit the ball or hit that cut into. And then I'll, the next shot, if I hit it perfectly where I want to, I'll have 135 yards in the green. So that might be a wedge, and my caddy will say, okay, the pin's back left. So yes, so I do a lot of that after the round, and then I'm prepared for the next morning. When I warm up the next morning, I do my warm up, get my body ready to go, and the last shot that I hit is the first tee ball that I'm going to hit, in my tournament play.
All right. So when you're actually standing on the first tee, let's say in a couple weeks here, you got the Chubb coming up. Your first hole, your first hole of the year, actually, right?
Yep.
Do you see that shot? Do you see that result before you hit it?
Yes, I definitely do. I've already seen myself hit, depending on the wind, it's either a hybrid or a free wood, and it just depends on the wind whether you're going to cut it or draw it, and then you're going to have a wedge into the green. 100%.
So
run first hole.
But it is interesting too, because you do have to be prepared for options. I remember in Newport, the first hole was drivable, and you weren't sure you were going to hit driver there.
Yeah.
But you ended up driving it on the first green. You kind of stood there and just felt it that particular.
Yeah, it was
morning.
One of those things. Exactly.
We practice round. You hit hybrid. You hit different shots. You hit a drive, but then in the tournament, you strike driver on the green, which turned out to be an amazing first tee ball.
Yeah, especially after not even really hitting drivers warming up there.
Right, because it was short.
It's a shorter range. Yeah, but you get into those where you just feel the shot, where you can feel sort of
Tungsten.
and then you just do it. But yeah, you try to end your warm up session with your first shots you're going to hit in play.
Always a good idea.
So when you've done that for 18 holes, I mean, obviously some days you're better at it than other days. Right? Some days your focus is easier maybe and less just because there's a zillion things out there to distract you. Do you feel like mentally drained after a competitive round on that tour?
Well, it's like anything, John. I mean, you when you play 18 holes and then you have to go out and you play another 18 holes when you're done working. It's not like you can just go out and do that. You got to work your way up to it. You might only be able to do another 7 or 8 holes, and then by that time, like I said, you're getting distracted. When you get out there, it's so much less of being like on tour. It's so much more of just being how do I shave shots here? What do I do to shave a shot here so I can shoot 69 instead of 70? It's all about finding that one little. It becomes less about what it is, and it becomes more about how do I save shots. So you become more focused on how do I save shots, and you become less focused on all the ancillary stuff that's out there. Doing these rounds after the round, Mark, my caddy made me do that. I mean, that wasn't part of my process. He's like, here's what we're going to do, and we did it, throughout the season. And I got to admit, when I had a lull in the season, I had about a 5-week stint there where I played terrible. I wasn't doing it as much. I wasn't doing that prep as much. I was just kind of working on my swing and working on things. So I knew I needed to make a change. So I was working on getting the club left and working on it instead of just, sticking to the process, seeing your shot and then just executing and not grinding so hard. I fell into the trap, man. I was grinding.
It's really hard to do. I know that, John, just to follow up with that, you get out there, it's like a kid in a candy store, right? There's a beautiful range. Every tour player you've ever heard of is standing there hitting balls and they're practicing, and you're like, I gotta hit balls. And it took a while to really say, okay, I don't need to stand here all day.
You have time to, so
Yeah.
you wanna practice, you wanna make it easier and easier and
Yeah.
easier as you have time. That's why, but what you don't know is that at 50, you're on a declining thing with your body. So you have this urge to get really good and grind, but your body's saying, okay, well, you shouldn't do this. And then on the other side of it, you still have to grind a little bit because you have to get better.
You have to get
So there's that balance of finding all of this. And then, I've had to self-reflect, and people ask me, well, what's so good about your game that gets you out here? And I always thought it was my ball strength. So I know it's my ball strength. I've come to believe that it's more of my almost my mental fortitude more than anything. My short game wasn't as good, my putting wasn't as good, my ball strength was good, but it wasn't tour level. But my brain was probably tour level. It's from all the mental stuff that I've done. And now that the short game is starting to get better, we've got more tools, so we've got more firepower. It's going to be a cool year as long as we stay up.
Now, obviously, being an exempt player this year, and and again, congratulations on that. I mean, everybody is so happy that you've done so well out there, and so proud of you, because we follow you on a weekly basis, and you just have a lot of pull on your time now, I would imagine, with this success. And so is your week tougher or easier because of your successes?
I wouldn't say it's tougher or easier. It's actually getting into more of a routine now. My routine from the first year, I had to get out there, Sunday night to Monday morning to learn the golf courses the first year. And then once I reflected, I said, okay, at the end of that year, I was like, well, I don't need to get out there Sunday night or Monday. So my routine changed from that. So now I get out there on Tuesdays. And I'll play a golf, I'll quickly get out there in the morning, I'll play in the afternoon, I'll either do a pro-am or one or two pro-ams on Wednesday and or Thursday, and then you go into Friday, Saturday, Sunday tournament. So, you kind of just get into this, you try to find the routine that works the most, that works the best, which is that, and then you have to filter in the process of keeping your game, firing on all levels. Your putting has to be good, your chipping has to be good, your pitching has to be good, your bunker play has to be good. And then whatever you're doing poorly has to still, be doing okay if you're on a.
Gotta work on the weaknesses,
Yeah.
for sure.
So it's like balancing all that and finding a routine for all that. And then once you find that routine, wow, it becomes easier. I got into that routine towards the end of the season, and it became a lot easier. And I just kept on shooting under par. I started making more birdies than bogeys again, and it felt comfortable again. So it was the routine.
And the one thing I might add to that we have talked a little bit about is, getting rid of the noise, right? You talk about distractions, focusing only on what's essential. I mean, to your point, you got 1 week, your purpose of getting there is to win a tournament. And the key is just to focus on only things that are essential in life and essential to your success, and cut out the noise. And unfortunately, today, we all have a lot of noise, right? You have noise with social media, you have noise with the news, and then you've got noise with just, and you show up at a tournament, I don't think there's a player that has more people that come up to them and say something to you, because you're very open and inviting, and you talk to people out there. So I think we've talked a little bit about just cutting out the noise, whatever you can, and staying a little bit more focused on what's essential.
Yeah, I've definitely seen, throughout the last 2 years, as their director of golf, I used to get hundreds of emails a day, with all sorts of requests to do everything, right? And now it's coming into my 3rd year here, and that's all quieted down. So that's helpful. When you're out on the road, it's hard because you have extra time. And for me, if I'm out there alone, I'm not with my family, I'm with my caddy, I don't like to waste time. I want to do something that's going to either A, better myself, or B, better myself, right? And unfortunately, when you get out there and you want to do this practicing, you want to do the working out, you want to do all that stuff, it's doing you more harm than it is good. So, I've talked to Ernie Els, I've talked to all these guys about this. So what do you do in your downtime? A lot of these guys, I mean, they don't do anything. It's like, oh, Rob, I just like to sit on my couch and watch, rugby, or I go to a movie, or I go fishing, or they literally just take their brains off of golf, which is hard for me.
Yeah.
So I'm learning that it's hard for me because I want to practice. I want to be good. I want it so bad, but I've also learned that I have to let go a little bit and allow it to come.
And from CJ, who's congratulating you as well. CJ was asking, if you play a major and you've not played the course before, where you play 18-hole rounds, you play 9-hole rounds with a lot of short game and practice and up and down opportunities. Does your routine change much from the regular tour schedule to a major? Because you've done extremely well in the Senior Open.
Yeah, no. So now I treat all of the events like the National Club Run. So every week is kind of like that. I haven't gotten to that point where the majors are more to me than a regular tour event. If I won a regular tour event, I'd be just as happy as winning a major, because winning's winning.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, CJ, thanks for the question. When you get out there, we're all playing new golf courses when we're playing the majors. Like Newport Country Club, a lot of those guys haven't played before. You're going to have guys like Billy Andrade and probably Frank Quinn and some of the guys that are from New England that know that golf course and have played it a lot. But we're going out to those golf courses, and we get out there Mondays. We might fly in, a couple weeks prior just to check it out. I did that at Century World, and I also did it at Saucon Valley, where I got in there probably 5 or 6 weeks before the event just to go play it. And that was that was good for me, because then I could visualize what I needed to do when I was out there. So I don't think it changes any differently. I really want it, since it's 4 rounds, I'm probably going to relax a little bit more. I'll go out there, probably before the week. I'll play that one time. I'll play it in my head a bunch of times. And then I might get out there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I might do 9 holes on Monday, 9 holes on Tuesday, and then maybe chip and putt around the greens on Wednesday, and then get ready for Thursday. So, the prep is, when you walk the golf course, you're doing your prep, you play your 9 holes. You're saying, okay, first hole, you can't hit it right off the first tee. There's your X, right? So then there's your game plan. You get up to the green, you'll hit your shot into the green, and then you work yourself around the green. That's, if I was going to break down my practice round, it would be, you hit 1 drive, maybe 2 drives, 1 or 2 shots into a green, and then you hit 100 shots around the green, and then you go to the next hole. And you hit 1 drive, 1 shot, and then you hit 100 shots around the green. You just figure it all out, because that's where it matters. Everybody can hit the ball out there, but if you miss a green, how's the ball going to react? If I miss it on this short side, can I get it up and down? Can I be aggressive to that flag? And if I can't be aggressive, if I hit it over here, what's this putt going to do? I want to know what this does. So those are the questions that you're asking yourself when you're out there. So I'm not out there grinding, but I'm out there doing my work a little bit more precisely. Whereas I'm not just trying to play practice rounds just to play. There's a lot of guys who qualify, and I played 8 PGAs before. I would just want to be out there with the crowds and want to be out there doing it. And that was part of it. But now I just want to see the golf course. I want to make my notes. I want to have enough energy. I want to go there. I want to execute my shots so I can win.
I think the main thing there is I noticed all the work was put around the greens. Standing on the tee was, I'm either driver 3 wood or hybrid. You hit it, then you get up to the green. You're in a practice round. You don't know where the hole location is going to be. You have an idea, so you just hit the shot in, and then you kind of went to work when we were out there.
Figuring it out,
Yeah,
pitch shots, different wedges, different shots. What's the sand feel like on this? If I hit, and you kind of know where they're going to put the flags. They're never going to put it generically in the middle. You kind of know where they're going to stick them.
But you have to practice for all 3.
Right. And 4 when you're
In
playing.
the major, 4. Yeah.
So
Great question.
so you've had 2 very successful years on tour now. From a teaching standpoint, has that changed your thoughts about your own teaching? Because I know you still do some things in the off season. And what have you learned from the tour in the past couple of years, which is what Ray Ford was asking, that may have changed how you feel about your own teaching at this time?
Oh man.
Ray Ford,
Yeah, that's a great question. You know what,
Ray?
Man, you know, it's so different teaching your members than it is playing golf full time. So as far as like, yeah, my teaching now, I mean, I play in a lot of pro-am, so I can help all my pro-am partners, and that's what I'm known as the pro-am guy. Because you know, when I go out there, I have fun with my AMs when they're out there. So I'm teaching a lot. So I do a lot of teaching still, okay? And it's on Wednesdays and Thursdays. And it gets down to the point where I'm out there with playing 18 holes. I watch them for 3 or 4 holes, get to know them, don't say anything, and then all of a sudden I'll give them one thing. It might screw them up for a hole, but because they're just getting used to it, by after they use it for that hole, then they start playing good. So, you know, for me, teaching's become sort of on the golf course all the time. So I'm not standing there, you know, doing what a coach would do and Carl does with me when we're looking at my swing. I've become more now, since I'm not an instructor anymore, full-time instructor, I've become more now just to feel sort of just a player. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but you get out of this thought process of what you're trying to do, and you get into the thought process of what you get so much more visual seeing what the ball's doing. It's not like you're getting up here, you're trying to do something to make your body do something to make it go. You're literally getting in there. You already have a shot picked, and you're setting up that way to make sure that that shot does what it wants to do when you set up to it. So it's a different mindset now. For me personally, I don't really try to instruct myself on video anymore. I'll leave it to Carl and Bill and Tom. But I'm so in tune now with feels that I don't think I'll ever really, you know, I'll let them do the video stuff for me.
It's a tough question because we were out at Sailfish Point playing with a couple of members, and one of the guys that Rob was riding with asked some questions, and Rob flat out said, "Look, I don't teach anymore. This is not a playing lesson. We'll have some fun today, but you know, I can't reconstruct a golf swing out here." Where, of course, I was doing just that.
It takes you, Ray. It's such a different mindset now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a different mindset. I can't get caught up in, like, I got people asking me and they want a lot of money to teach them. To be honest, I just don't do it because it's a different mindset. I want to get the ball in the hole. I don't really care if somebody else does right now. in a nice way, right? Where it used to be part of my income is now just straight get the ball in the hole. So that's kind of my mentality.
You know, one of the things I've noticed, you know, because this is the 3rd year in a row that we've done this ever since you first qualified, is that, you know, compared to last year and the year before, your demeanor and the way you carry yourself is much more workmanlike now than I've seen in the past. Like in the past, you were out there, you had a job to do, but now it seems like you're really in tune with the job you are doing and what it takes to get it done. It's, if you will, a player maturity level change that I'm noticing. That you're very focused on the visualization and the execution of the shot, and you know what it takes now to win. Would that be fair to assess you in that manner?
Yes. I haven't won yet. I know what it takes to win at a section level, PGA level, but I haven't won, you know, besides Q School, I haven't won out on this level yet. And I'm waiting for that to happen because that's what I told myself, you know, 20 years ago,
Yeah.
You know, when I won the Westchester PGA, which is my first win in the section level, you know, in the Met section. It's just one of those things where once you realize that you can do it, the floodgates kind of open. I know I can do it, I just haven't done it yet. I mean, I've had a few, you know, fourths. I've been right there, you know, last hole, having a chance to, and I haven't gotten it done yet. But knowing that I've had that chance, I can do it because it's right there. You know, I just got to
definitely have a skill set.
And I think everybody telling you that you're going to win helps as well.
It does help.
There's guys out there that are talking about it's only a matter of time, things like that.
And that's what you got to remember. You got to just keep telling yourself, be patient. So let's fast forward to, you know, 3 weeks ago when I hurt my back. I mean, here you go from like this euphoria of like, oh my gosh, I got 27 events to play in, to, oh my God, am I going to take a major medical for a year? It's like, you know, so, you know, I don't have the income from, you know, my club. I don't have the income from the lessons. I don't have the income from the shop or whatever I was doing. So, you know, it becomes very you gotta be very specific with what you're doing. One of my friends told me Jack Nicklaus would make Barber open up his, not that much, would make Barber open up his cans for him so he wouldn't hurt his hands. I mean, you know, there's ways that I've just become more protective of this, my body, because I want to last out here. And I got scared. I got scared to be scared. It sucked. It sucked to be scared because you just finally get everything going, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, wow, where's that come from? You're gonna take me out of the game.
But what we talked about at dinner is how fortunate that it happened with 6 weeks to go rather than happening after the first week.
Yeah.
And you now have learned and you'll adjust and
So
being
that's-
the positive people we are, you're looking at it like, okay, this was a good thing and we're gonna make sure that it's a good thing that happened, turning it into a positive.
This is a
Take a
total.
couple of weeks off, work on your short game, go out feeling fresher than you probably would have.
This is all from the guy upstairs.
There you go.
He's
Right.
leading it. He's
Yeah.
saying, listen, you're grinding. We're gonna take you down a peg. We're gonna make you rest. We're gonna make you relax. We're gonna make you work in short game. And to be honest, in the last 3 weeks, I've been hitting so many short game shots that I'm developing a nice touch around the green. So everything happens for a reason. And get back. My doctor's. It's not a career ender. It's just a little bump in the road. All good.
And he's not the only
And
guy in
so-
the team with an injury.
Well, your prep here in the off season, and and obviously you and Carl down there together now. What has been your focus here? Short game, putting, course
That's-
management.
Short game and putting. That's all it is. Short game chipping. I'm using every one of my wedges from 2 to right now about 35 to 40 yards off the front edge of the green. And I'm getting really comfortable with all sorts of different ball flights. Cut spins, draw spins. I'm able to check the ball now. I'm able to spin it a little bit more with the face being open. So, all of those shots. Whereas I didn't have that first year. And I was starting to get a little bit better with the wedge the second year, but I still had a lot of force coming from my hands and arms around the greens, which was hard for me to feel. And it's funny, like I said, it's a blessing in disguise because I've been working with Bill and Carl on my short game. And it's amazing how much slower my arms and the club are going through the hitting zone. My body's moving a little bit better, and it's so much better to control my distances. It's amazing how far the ball goes without all the excessive force.
And I think the focus, just for everybody out there, Rob and I talked about, I think his number is 4 to 7, mine's 5 to 10 yards. I think you want to be extremely proficient in carrying the ball accurately 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 yards. Because when he misses a green, he's not missing it from 20 yards. He's missing it right off the edge, and he's got to carry the ball anywhere from 5 to 10 yards at whatever trajectory. And I think what we've talked about is at that level, you have to be really good at the easy ones. When you're 6 feet off the green and the flag is 20 feet on, you either make it or you have a tap in. You cannot not get those up and down. So the first step is you have to be 100% with the easy ones. And then you got to get good at, okay, that was a really good up and down from a tougher one. And then you got to practice the bad lines. The ones where, like you said, you hit it off the line and it's buried down in there. And, you've got to be able to at least scrape away a par or bogey at worst. And I know one of the things we talk about is I look at the short game like there's 3 ways to get it up and down. I'm either hitting a perfect shot that's going to lead me a tap in. I'm going to hit a good shot that's going to lead me the 5, 6, 7, 4-footer that I should make.
Yep.
Or I'm not going to hit a good one and then I'm making a 15, 20-footer and I'm still getting it up and down. And it's that mindset that there's 3 ways to do it. Because a lot of times I play with players and they think they're going to hit it 2 feet, they hit it 8 feet, and they walk to the ball disappointed. Whereas it's still 8 feet. I'm still getting it. My goal was to get it down in 2. It doesn't matter how I do it. There's 3 ways to do it.
And one of the things that I used to do, which was a mistake on my part when I was prepping for tournaments, is I would go around the greens and I would try to give myself the worst possible lie on every shot around the green, which I learned is not a great thing to do because I was like, oh, if I have the worst possible lie, then I can get up and down. If it's like an easy lie, wow, that would be easy to get up and down. So then there were a lot of times when I'd get up over a shot and I'd have an easy lie and I'd either hit it too hard or too soft. And it was like, well, that's an easy lie. Well, you got to practice that,
And what I've been trying to communicate to Rob and talk about is, with the easy ones, if you practice a lot of easy ones, you're going to make some. And that just changes around. When you miss a green and you chip in from right off the edge, it really gets the momentum going. So those chip ins, and the only way to do it is to see it. And when you're around the greens, you should be trying to make those easy ones, not just get them close. And that's why when you're practicing hard shots, you're not really trying to make it, you're trying to get it close. But if you get it just off the edge and start seeing the ball go in, then your misses, how that thing goes, aim small, miss small, aim big, miss big.
It's true.
So if you're trying to make it and you don't make it, you're usually really close
Yeah.
from the easy ones.
I guess the biggest mistake that I had in the short game, which we pointed out was from my long game, which was as I, hit the shot, I would always close the face. And there were times where if your arms are going too fast and the club's going too fast, and the face is closing, that toe of the club hits the ground a little bit before the ball, it just doesn't come out solid. You don't hear a solid strike. Doesn't react the way you want to. And I was starting to get some of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's amazing how those little things just drift into your game, and here you are working on it every day. So you still have to have the eyes of your coach or your PGA professional, whoever it is, to kind of, if you sat down and you talk about your game plan, what you're trying to execute, you got to make sure that you're executing what you're trying to do.
Yeah, so maybe that'll segue into something, which is, look, in a full swing, face rotation is essential for speed, right? The face is turning over, the toes moving slightly faster than the heel, and it creates maximum distance. But what Rob and I have talked about around the greens is we'd love to have a shot where you can swing what feels somewhat aggressive, but the ball comes off slowly. I always found one of the hardest shots is when you have to have perfect touch. But if you can get in there and have good rhythm and tempo and have a nice pace to your stroke, but like a bunker shot, the ball comes off with a smash of 0.7, 0.8, so it's coming off very slowly. Then under pressure, you've got this ability to have nice acceleration, which I think makes your bad shot better. But the ball comes off slow, so you can hit it in, short. And that comes from, like we talked about, where the face now doesn't rotate. It finishes way more open and up, and you get that little cut feel.
And tie that into, what I feel when I'm under pressure when I'm playing. You have to get up and down from a shot in front of the green, whereas, he just said the first thing is you start gripping it tight, you're going to go faster and you're going to go quicker. But if you go nice and soft and slow, the looser that you grip that club when you're under pressure, the softer that ball's gonna come off. So like there's times where I might be in the last hole and I have to get it up and down. It's a real tight shot. I need to come off soft instead of thinking about, open the face, high, just soften your hands and make the same swing. And the club will slide a little bit more. The ball will come off a little bit more dead, with a little more spin. It comes off soft, a little higher. So there's things that you can do when you're playing. Whereas when you're instructing, then you instruct and do it that way. And then you just try to find a way that works when you're playing. And then you got to do it under pressure.
And I will say when it comes to under pressure, I think part of the reason Rob's here is because he fits into one of the categories that I found players fall into. And that is Rob's in the category where if I show Rob a shot and he hits it a couple of times, he will take it right to the tournament. I watched him out in California. Hit a flop shot over a bunker, and I swear he didn't hit 3 of them before he went out there. And he hit this most beautiful flop shot over a bunker between 2 palm trees. And, it seemed like he didn't have that shot only hours ago.
I did.
But you pulled it out of the tournament and made birdie on par 5 coming down the stretch. So I think that's an important thing is, some players feel like they hit that shot once, they get a feel, and they say to themselves, great, now I got to practice this 10,000 hours to do it. Whereas Rob says, I got the feel, I can do it. I got it, right? And I think that's a way more positive way to look. We're going to miss shots, but if you go into it with one shot, be like, that felt amazing. I can do that right off the bat. That's a good feeling.
But I've also done the same thing where I've gone into that shot thinking I've got it and tried to pull off a flop shot completely the crap out.
Yeah, it has happened too, but you got over it.
Right. But listen, if you're going to take that chance,
yeah.
It's like anything. You're going to risk it.
You're
You're
gonna
going to risk it
risk
for
it.
the reward, or
Makes
yeah,
you strong.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, more successes than failures on that.
So your confidence in your short game and what you've been working on down there obviously should show up in your par 5 performance, right? Because you've got length. So it would seem that you're in position a lot of times where you can, if you will, attack the par 5.
Yes.
Because you have the length.
Yeah, that was the that was the weak element of my length. 6th or 7th on the tour in length, and it's not even a really good representation because we don't, they don't measure all the holes, and there's sometimes when we're measuring holes where I'm hitting 3-wood hybrid. But that being beside the point, I went out there and I thought my length was going to be a huge, factor. Wow, he hits it so long, he's going to shoot low all the time. The way they put the pins and the way they do the greens and all that stuff, you got to have a good wedge game. And that got exposed on me when I was out there right away. I felt it. I knew it. I was standing out there, and there were shots that I saw guys, Glenn Day, make it look like, short-sided from a downhill, sticks it like this, to 3 feet on, make it look like it's nothing. And then he does it again. And, I didn't have those sort of things. I could do it every once in a while. So I had to learn how to do that. And I didn't understand, for myself why I couldn't until, I started talking to Bill and Tom and Carl. And, there were some leaks. I was diving with my knees a little bit in my pitch shots. My body rotation was stopping. There were some things that were going on wrong in my pitching game, which became really apparent when I was out there underneath the gun. So I've worked really hard on just putting myself into situations every time that I get a shot. So it's not the first time. So it's like I have to get up and down to win the U.S. Senior Open, and then I'll hit the shot well now. Whereas I would do that before and it wouldn't go so well. So I did that all winter. So I'm looking forward to getting out there and showing my new short game confidence out there from what we've done.
Yeah, and I think, basically to bundle that, it's important, look, after you practice, you should always test. If you're practicing for 2 hours and you don't test at the end of your practice, it's hard to know, did you do anything, right? So your ability to say, okay, I practiced, now I'm gonna pretend I'm in the US Open, I've got this shot to the screen, I either hit it or not. If you can mentally put yourself in that position and test it, even if it's, I'm gonna hit 10 shots and I should be able to hit this 150-yard green 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
You've got to test at the end of your practice to really know that you're making progress.
And that's why I haven't had access to the 2 places I do play, which is here in the Bears Club, which is great. Yeah. Bears Club has a phenomenal facility to practice. A lot of the tour players there, so I'm learning a lot there as well. Yeah. Any other questions?
You were talking earlier about reducing the speed in your arms and hands and club.
Yeah.
And so what are you doing to do that? What's been the change this winter to get you to where you have this confidence in your game? Or are you using more body, more rotation?
Yeah, so that was a great question. So Bill Davis and I, when I first started with Bill, I was 16 years old. And he beat into my brain for chipping and small pitch shots that you shouldn't use your lower body. And I'm not blaming it. I'm just saying
we all go through stages of what we believe and try, and you change.
Right.
As a teacher and player.
So
you have to adapt.
I thought that it was going to be really easy to just measure how far the ball's going to go by just using the club and the pressure of the club and your arms. But what happened was my body started to get so quiet that the club would enter the ground in different spots because I wasn't rotating. So yes. So for me, I mean, obviously I've hit millions of pitch shots. I had to, I think that's why I think the back injury is a good thing. I just had to work on, keeping my arms sort of connected a little bit more with my torso, which is really hard. I mean, it's not like it's an easy thing to do. But feeling almost like you're facing the target before the club actually hits the ball, which is a feeling that I was kind of losing the familiarity with it. And then also being a drawer of the golf ball, my shoulders always had a tendency of being closed. And when my shoulders were closed, I would always add a little bit too much tilt. So all of this stuff, if you're looking in front of me, added up to this to hit a pitch shot. And you're not going to hit a good pitch shot from there. You got to rotate so hard from there to hit it. So we had to change my setup, which felt really uncomfortable in the beginning, which was getting the ball forward, allowing my spine and my shoulders to open up and go with it, and that just made me feel like I could rotate on it more. And it feels like with my body going through it now, it feels like I'm able to keep a loft on the club, which now, since I understand loft on a club, it's going to be a lot easier to hit shots high and low around the knees. So that's what I've been working on all winter.
Are you using more of the bounce on the club with this method?
So I was using a lot of bounce before. I started actually, early releasing it a little bit. But yes, this way I'm actually starting to feel and hear a little bit more of a thump when I hit the ground, which is nice. And I'm definitely not feeling the club dig so much, and the different lies around the greens and the different types of grasses are actually easier to deal with the club coming in a little bit more steeper, but yet in the right spot. So it feels more comfortable. I gained a lot of confidence now, so it's nice.
And then here's a question from Dan, more about when you're playing in a tournament. It's just like,
Yeah.
so those times when you were, when you knew you were in contention coming down the stretch, the last 3 or 4 holes, you knew that the opportunity was there. Does that change your mindset at all when you're playing those last 3 or 4 holes, or are you just, you have a routine and you're going to stick to your routine, and the cards are going to fall where they may?
Dan has probably done his homework on me. When I first got out here, again, my views of what I'm doing has changed a lot, just because I'm starting to learn how the process and how this works out here. I literally thought I was going to come out, I'd be so long that I'd win early, and it was going to be easy. I came out, we just explained everything, and here's where we're at right now. So to answer your question, it's one of these things where, how do I say it? I want to phrase this properly.
You're aware of where you are.
Yeah.
Does it change?
I first came out and I wanted to, I thought I would win easy, and it didn't happen. So I was like, okay, you got to have solid finishes and you got to make enough money to keep your card. So it's like, okay, so if you're in second place or third place and you have a chance to win, do you secure the card or do you go for the win? Okay, my first year out there, I would probably, went for the win. Okay, the second year out there, okay, which was last year, I probably would have secured the card. Okay, which sounds so weird but now my mental state going into this year is, I've talked to so many guys out there, I just want to win. I don't want to secure cards, and I don't want to, finish second. Nobody cares if you finish second. I mean, you have another year out there. Do I want this to end? I want my career on the Champions Tour to end when my body tells me I can't do it anymore, and when I'm physically not able to keep up with everybody out there. So I want to do it as long as I can. But on the other side of it, I'm out there now. If I have a chance to win, I'm going to win. If I'm on the last hole and I got 230 yards and there's water right and water left, and I got a chance to make eagle to win, I'm going to try to win. So wins go a lot longer than finishing in the top 36. If I don't finish in the top 36, or let's say top 45 this year, I'm basically only going to play in a handful of events, and I won't have a career unless you win. If I go out there and I win right away, then you're in a different category, and the wins bring you into a spot where if you finish 45th or worse, you're still going to have a bunch of events to play in, and your career's not going to end. So to answer your question, I'm going out there now to win because I want my career to last longer. I don't want to chip away at top 36 every year, because I'm one swing away from my back going out. I'm one swing away from someone driving into me in the roads down here. I don't know when it's going to end. So I want to just make sure that I go out there and I try to win. And that's my mindset, which I thought about a lot this winter. So I appreciate that question.
Yeah, I think that just speaks to the maturation that you've experienced over the last couple of years. I just get the sense that you're a very different player now than you were last year and when you were your inaugural year on tour. And obviously, we're very excited about the prospects and how you're carrying yourself, and you just have an air of confidence that this is going to happen now, that you're going to, make those up and downs, and you're going to improve that par 5 percentage, because, that's one of the tools in your bag. So one of the things in playing better and making more up and downs and making more birdies on par 5s is obviously putting. So have you done anything different this year in preparation for the tour with your putting, and your tendencies?
Oh, we've done a lot more, Bill Davis and I have done a lot of line training, when we're working around short game. So he teaches over at Abacoa, which is kind of right across the street from where I live in Alton. And, what I'll do is he'll set up stations and he'll say, okay, today we're gonna work 2, 3, and 4 yards off the green. And he'll set up, piles of two balls, maybe 4 or 5 piles, and he'll go around the green in every sort of situation, with every sort of flag. And we'll do that for about an hour and a half. And I'm going through my routine each time that I hit these shots to a specific target. So the line training is really important. And then he also sticks 2 noodles out in front of me, about a foot apart, maybe 4 or 5 feet in front of me. So when I'm out there on the golf course, again, I'm not thinking about technique. I'm thinking about where I want to fly the ball and how I want to see the ball land and roll. And that's become a huge part of my routine with putting those two noodles out in front of you, because it takes away all of your internal thoughts and it puts you directly into where you're trying to get the ball to go, which
So
is
it's more of an external focus.
super important. Yeah. And then when you're doing that, you can also mess around with your flights, with your ball position. You can put it forward, middle, or back, depending if you want, hit it high and let it release, or back, hit it a little low with some spin. So that's become kind of like a staple. I do that 4 times a week with them for about 45 to 50 minutes in preparation for coming up to the season. And then Carl and I are gonna, we were working on, still my cut swing and face staying open and a lot of shots around the green, face, just getting me aware of where the bottom of my arc is and getting me aware of what the face is doing at the bottom of the arc. And that's all Carl's been doing.
And just to follow up on putting, which I think is, to your point, whether it be par 5 percentage, bunkers, percentage, up and downs, obviously you got to make the short ones. I think Rob's strength out there with putting has been speed control. He's one of the few guys that walks off his putts. He knows if he's 23 feet or 28 feet. I think you find that Rob's putting speed is really good. We've talked about it. 2 things. One, it's really just about making those 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 footers relentlessly, right? Anybody that watches golf and the guys lead the turn with 3 holes to go and they put up a stat, hasn't missed a putt inside of 10 feet. He's 49 of 49, right? And so we know it's really coming down to make those 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 footers. Those are huge for your putting stats. And in order to do so, it's really a lot about, from what we saw last year, believe it or not, reading greens. I would say Rob walked off a lot of tournaments saying, I'm hitting the putts fine, but they're just breaking the other way. And, you got to remember the guys out there he's playing against have been at these courses over and over. They know the breaks, they know the greens. He's learning them for the first time. And I think that's pretty critical. It's really just understanding the putts. You got experience now, and focus on making the shorter ones.
And that's why I work around those greens for each event that I play in. I'm charting all that stuff. When I hit pitch shots, I'll just get my yardage book and, you just chart where the balls are breaking. And that way you have the information when you go into the event and you're not, you're prepared for, if you do miss the green there, even if you have a putt, you saw what it did when you chipped it past the hole. So you just get an idea of what's happening.
And it is important to mention, those guys are good. It's 20 under, 18 under for 3 rounds. Those hole locations are always top ridge, falls off behind it. I mean, there's nothing really easy out there when it comes to, the only thing I would say is on the easier side is, sometimes it's under 7,000 yards and that helps, 6,900, right? But in general, the hole locations are tough and the greens are fast and firm and different grasses every week. So I do think the more experience he gains out there, the more putts he hits, you're gonna walk on greens this year and be like, oh, I made this putt last year.
Yeah, and
you didn't have that the year before. Yeah. So those types of things can only help us.
And one of the things that surprises me somewhat, but makes so much sense when you think about it, is that when I'm watching tour players, both the champions and the regular tour, is how conservative they are when they get into some kind of a trouble situation. I call it keeping par alive. So they, the pitch shots with the 40, 50, 60, 70 yard wedges, and how many times it seems that you're keeping the ball from getting flag high so that you have an easier putt uphill, on an angle that you like.
Yeah.
And are very, very good at that.
They're really good. They have a stock sort of yardage that they practice all the time. KJ Choi has, it's funny, he when he warms up, he has a little piece of paper and he draws the range on this piece of paper and he shoots all the numbers and he writes them down. And he puts this little piece of paper like right in front of him and puts 4 T's in it and he hits shots through it. And he's always constantly, hitting a shot and he looks at the piece of paper. And it's one of these, and then the one thing that I noticed about the piece of paper is he always ends with 40-yard wedge shots. Always ends with 40-yard wedge shots. So like 10 40-yard wedge shots in a row. So then I started, kind of looking around. I know Lee Jansen hits 40-yard wedge shots. David Frost hits 40-yard wedge shots. Stephen Alpert loves to hit 40-yard wedge shots. So I turned to my my caddy. This is when I first got out there, and I said, Mark, what's up with the 40-yard wedge shot? He's like, that's like brushing your teeth. He goes, you just hit 40-yard wedgers because you're going to have these 40 yards where you got to get up and down. Inside 40, you just take it back a little shorter, and outside 40, you take it back a little farther, and it just becomes sort of automatic. But you're practicing that 1 yardage that you like, which is 40 yards. So I started doing that, and then the up and downs become a lot easier because if say you hit one into a position where you got to wedge it out or whatever, you can try to get to a yardage that you like, and then once you like that, you find that little yardage that you like, then you can kind of just dial into that distance and work off that distance, which saves you shots.
One of the things I've noticed, and I know you're friendly with and have been for decades, is Jerry Kelly.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that Jerry Kelly is one of the most underrated players in professional golf.
Yeah. He doesn't hit it long. He's got probably one of the biggest desires to win out of anybody on tour. And he's got a magical short game. He can get up and down from a paper bag. It's amazing what he can do with a wedge as a hockey player. And he is just amazing. And he controls the ball beautifully off the tee. But I think his biggest attributes are his mental game and his short game. And just a good
from a mental standpoint, who impresses you most out there?
Stephen Alpert and Steve Stricker. Those two guys they're in a different league. Just ball striking wise. I've played with Steve Stricker a bunch of times now, probably 4 or 5 times, and actually in one of my better finishes at the Hogue early last year, and I played with him the last 2 rounds. He birdied the last hole, beat me by a shot, finished second. But that being said, he hits the ball and pitch shots and chip shots and putts and everything that he does is right in the center of the face. He doesn't hit a ball off the toe or off the heel or thin it. It's amazing to watch the preciseness. And when you do that all the time, you become really good at how hard you're hitting a shot. And then Stephen Alpert's the same way. I mean, here's a guy who basically came from nowhere and he's dominating the Champions Tour. And he's a New Zealand guy. He's lost his caddy last year, right after the tournament they just played in Hawaii due to cancer. And the guy's just incredible. And he's one of the nicest guys out there. But you know what? He'll eat you for breakfast. He's just a competitor, and he won't let you win.
It seems like all of you are very nice to one another, and obviously when the bell goes off, it's a race, and you have a job to do. But it seems like there's a lot of sharing and caring with your fellow players, and wanting you to do well.
Yeah, the guys out there are, listen. If you're playing good and they beat you, they're only getting better. So the guys out there everybody wants to get better, and you're going to help people get better. Not because you're jealous or you think they're going to get better than you. It's just that the more that you play with better players, and you just got to keep getting better. I mean, these guys are always constantly looking on ways to save a shot here or a shot there. And how do you they're not making mistakes. I mean, Alpert's not making any mistakes. He just shot 26 under Hawaii, I think, to win for 4 rounds or 3 rounds. I mean, it's insane. Think about the conversion rate. You shoot 9 under like it's nothing. I'm not telling you, golf courses are a little shorter, but 9 under is 9 under. We play our section events. We're not shooting 9 under. Sometimes a guy might shoot 6 or 7 under. These guys are doing it every freaking week. it's unbelievable. It's amazing to see, but that's how you get better, by just playing with better players. And trying to.
Has that been your biggest realization since being out there, is the ability of players to save shots?
Yeah, they've been doing it because that's their mentality. Their mentality is, how do I save a shot here, save a shot there? How do I get the ball in the hole? Where, you look at Vijay Singh. Here's Vijay, great. Probably one of the greatest competitors out there. He pitches and chips the ball cross-handed and putts with a broom. And he turned it on last year. He didn't. The year prior, he didn't practice. He turned it on last year. He won, and he's just got that competitive fire. There's something I've noticed in every one of those guys out there, from Chris DeMarco to Jeff Sluman to Stephen Alpert to Ernie Els. And I told this to Carl a few weeks ago. Justin Leonard. Every one of these guys has a look about it that when you talk to them, it almost looks like they're looking right through you. That's the difference between the greats and the guys who aren't the greats. It's unbelievable how you can just see that these guys know that they're good, and they know that they're owning you. Right? Those guys, they're playing better golf than I am. Are they better players than me? Do they have more desire than me? No, but they're playing better than me right now, and I'm trying to get up to their level. So the more that I can just kind of chip away at these things and play with them and talk and listen to Carl and Bill and Tom, and we'll just chip away and find a shot here, find a shot there. It's like a quarter shot around away from top 10 at the end of the year at Charles Schwab. It's like a quarter shot around. It's nothing like it's
Well,
like.
you 8 spots from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah.
The other thing though, and Rob and I have talked about this, that look in their eye also allows one other thing. And I think it is interesting that, when you play through the Mets section, coming up and having the success you had, sometimes up there it takes 68, 69, 67. But out there on the Champions Tour, these guys are really good. The day they show up and you make the 20-footer on 1, you chip in on 4, and then you hit it 3 feet on 5, and you're 3 under through 5. Those are the days that those guys in their head say, "I'm going low."
And I think 5 more birdies on the backside, they shoot 8 or 9 under.
And I think that's the key one of the keys for Rob this year is consistency is awesome, but just opening that door on the day when it's flowing. And to me, I always say you got to throw decade out on that day because I'm not missing. That's the day you hit at the flag, and like you said, if you're 230 with water right and left, and you're 7 under, that's the day you go for it because I'm not missing that day. And I think, that's the mindset that will help this year, is that ability to, when it's rolling, you get to 6, 7, 8, 9 under, and then you only have to shoot a 68 to win. And I think that's when I look at all the scores this past couple of seasons, the guys that won shoot 69, 63, 68, or 68, 62, 67, right? It's very rare that a guy shoots 66, 66, 66. Is one round is deep, and then they hang on in the finals kind of thing. Or they go low in the finals.
Yeah, Albert Stricker, like what he did in Hawaii last year, he was like 29 under. He shot 61, 62, 64, 63.
Yeah,
you're like, dude.
We had drinks with Mario, and you asked him, blank, how did he, because Mario was caddying for him, and he said, hey, when he's out there making every putt, what's it look like? Go ahead, because it was awesome.
He goes, it just seems like, it doesn't even seem like he's doing anything. He's just kind of, he's chipping the ball down the fairway, he's hitting on the green, and wherever he gets on the green, and he's hitting it sort of inside, 10, 15 feet, they just go in.
Yeah. He said, the things that you would suspect, he dissects a golf course better than everybody else. He knows where he needs to hit his golf ball, and every putt he hits looks like it's going in. Every putt.
It's amazing.
And that's how you get to shooting the numbers you get.
Same with Padre, he's the same way. All those guys are, and you know what? I talked to Stuart Sink the other day. Here's a guy who's eligible for the Champions Tour, and he's like, I'm not ready to play on the Champions Tour because I still have a career on the PGA Tour. So, and you're gonna see he played pretty good a few weeks ago, and maybe he played great in the final round. But there's gonna be some newer blood coming out here, so it's gonna make me have to play even better. As I get older, more younger guys are gonna be coming onto the tour, and they're going to be fully exempt. You have to make over $21 million in earnings to be fully exempt on the Champions Tour. And if you do that, you can play anything you want. I think you got to play in 5 events a year to maintain your status, but you can basically play in whatever you want. For me, I can't do that. even if I win the Charles Schwab Cup, you know, if I don't, you know, play well the next year and finish outside that top 45, and since I won the Charles Schwab Cup, I'll have events to play in, but still, I'm gonna have to grind to get starts and wait for sponsors invites. And so it's a different mentality these guys have than I do. They have gazillions of dollars. I don't. I'm still trying to make a living, put my kids through school, and you know, so I take this super seriously. The fun portion of it is still there, but the work portion of it is in my brain. And I'm right where I want to be. I'm exactly where I want to be, doing exactly what I want to do, and with the help of all you guys and the Met section and everybody and the coaches. And it's really cool to have all the support behind me. And I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. I told you from the first time we did these things, I'm gonna just tell you what I'm working on, tell you what I'm doing to try to succeed out here. But if you guys can take one nugget away from what Carl and I have talked about, or John has talked about today, then we've done our jobs. Because you know, the life of a club pro is very different from the life of a touring pro. To be able to decipher between the two and bring you guys into both worlds is kind of cool for me, because it's a different world. It's a different mindset. And if you don't get in that mindset, that's why I can see why people don't succeed when they go from one to the other. Or, you know, you see guys come from the tour and they get into the club pro business and they're still tour players and they haven't learned how to service people yet. And we see the guys who are club pros and they get into the tour side and they haven't learned to be selfish yet. So there's a balance of what you got to do and how you have to act, and you know, sort of be just to succeed at this level. It's like I said, it's the most fun I've ever had, but it's the most stressful. And
Well,
really,
your maturation over the past couple of years is amazing to watch, and I just think we're going to see some really good golf out of you this year. You know where your game is, you know where your tendencies are, and you know, fortunately, you still have a lot of length that other players don't have, so that you have an ability to attack the par fives and play those. One last question here. Looking back over the past few years on the par fives, what are you going to do differently on them that you haven't done in the past? Because, you know, they're obviously good birdie holes for somebody like you.
yeah, I mean, John, I have a wedge game now, so I mean, I understand. You know, I'm gonna do the same thing I kind of do. I'm gonna be a lot more confident with the shots that I'm gonna hit from around the greens. If I don't hit the green in two, there's areas now. My golf swing's gotten a lot better. I'm able to control the ball a little bit more in a certain direction. So, you know, I'll be able to attack the par fives. That's you know, you brought it up a few times. That's definitely something we haven't talked about. But that's something on the top of my list of ways that I can definitely lower my scoring average and make more money out there. It's just by playing better on par fives. So, but it all started from just, you know, learning how to use this baby a little bit better, and that's where I put the main focus on. So we'll see how that works.
Well, we're excited for you. We're excited for you and Carl spending time together. It's nice that you had this time in Florida together because, you know, in addition to the player-coach relationship, you have a personal friendship that goes back decades, and you guys know each other better than anybody else probably know the two of you. So I'd like to thank you, Carl, for taking all the time and effort in the last couple of days, for meeting with me at the show, putting the outline together. You're doing a great job there, and we're so appreciative of both of you sharing your time. Rob, we're excited about where your game is and where your confidence is in your game, and we wish you nothing but the best going forward. And we hope to see a lot of strong finishes coming for you this upcoming season.
They're coming.
Yeah, thank you guys, and good luck to everybody in their season this year.
Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you,
Hopefully
guys.
learned something that can help.
Thank you so much, and best wishes with the girls and with Matthias.
Thank you very much. You guys too.
Take
See ya.
care. Everybody, thank you for being with us. And stay tuned next week. Kevin Sprecher is going to be on and doing some things with Clip. And in the following week, I'm hoping to do a seminar on what we found at the golf show. So stay tuned. Watch Rob on his Champions Tour third year, fully exempt. So we're going to see some wonderful things. Good day.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Be good.